The human species was discovered by a child working on a science project. She had intercepted weak signals and translated them, and this gained media attention quite quickly. We had already discovered 2 other races, and we had estimated that the galaxy alone must contain some 15,000 sentient species, but this was quite different. The Uspa'a are quite simple people. They have little interest in the outside world and would rather just be left to their own devices. The Bifnaki, on the other hand, very nomadic people, always itching to go out and explore new things and meet new people or go places they have never seen before. Yes, we all have our differences, but in general you know what you get with each of us. The Genevans, or humans as they were known back then, well, Genevans are a paradox. Simultaneously, their greatest strength and most obvious weakness is a lack of distinctive culture. Sure, listen to them tell you that they have the highest culture in the galaxy, and in some ways they're right, but it really is all over the place and lacks cohesion. They lack a strong moral or social purpose and identity. They've had more civil wars in their history than any of the other races, including the Jigregi, and seem to favour a path of tearing themselves apart to reinvent themselves stronger, which is a messy and inefficient way of growing as a species. They're like a child building a toy castle, but instead of just adding to a strong base, the whole castle needs to be kicked over and rebuilt from scratch every 10 minutes. Whilst they lack a strong social identity, this gives them the benefit of the most flexibility and adaptability to other cultures and meeting new species, which makes them great ambassadors and first contact operatives, providing they remember not to shoot at something. For every Genevan who has a problem with 7-legged sentience, there will be 4 who think that that's just a perfect number of legs for anyone to have, and will gladly spend the night telling people at one of their parties how 7 legs is so fashionable, and they are considering getting 5 prosthetic legs for the holidays. This sort of behaviour makes them the poster child for the UNITI, because not only can they accept other cultures, but they absorb them into their own. Does this serve to dilute their own culture or enrich it? Genevans have a habit of encountering new species and picking up some phrases and adding them into a common vernacular, and finding some aspects to introduce into their own practices, and then sharing, maybe even pushing onto other species. Before they rebranded themselves from humans, they used to celebrate meeting a new culture by going to war with it. Where the Jigregi fight a new species to assess dominance, humans almost seemed to do it for fun. Yes, you could think your way out of a situation, but if you can't talk your way out of it, much easier simply to pick up a gun and start shooting. The move to the Genevan system and the formation of the Unified Alliance government really acted as catalysts to bring the species to a much-needed peace. They are the only species known to have changed their homeworld. This was due to years of unchecked strip mining, dozens of wars culminating in the Ildre invasion, and an environment which even their weather systems could no longer control. Earth isn't uninhabitable by any means, and hundreds of millions still live there, including a colony called Free Terrans, who still consider it their rightful home. But moving to the Genevan system meant a new start, on a verdant new world, one which they attempted to make the headquarters for the Unified Alliance government. But really, Eraso was more central and more well-established. Possibly their greatest usefulness to the wider galactic populace is their penchant for bridge building. I'm speaking metaphysically, of course. Perhaps due to their history of warfare, Genevans above all others will do more than any other species to collect species into a group, and say that the group will do better if they all pitch in and collaborate. Perhaps it's because of all the structures that they tear down that they are so skilled in building new ones, and I'm sure that without their influence in regional politics, even the discovery of the primes would have left us 20-something disparate nations. The other most noticeable characteristic is that they're always having sex. They breed like they are rebuilding a population, and they simply have so many babies. It might be because they only tend to have one or two at a time. When we first encountered them, we labeled them the galaxy's traders, but after a while, in polite circles, one would simply whisper about the baby-making warmongers, and everyone knows who you are talking about. Having spread themselves throughout UNITI space, and with their adaptability and enthusiasm rivaled only by the Bifnaki, Genevans make up roughly 40% of UNITI personnel throughout fleets and outposts, which seems ridiculous in an organization with over 20 major civilizations. And so with these factors, when considering the application of a label to make sense of this species, one can only conclude likeness to an adaptive and symbiotic virus. Genevans will try and embrace new species to the point of attempting to integrate with them, if not fighting them, but in doing so, and in then filling all available space with offspring, they will feel like they are consuming the new race. They will tell you that they can be all things to all people, and whilst it's true that they are the most adaptable species, they are the most conflicted and directionless. Whether that proves to save the UNITI or destroy it, only time will tell.